So in this section, I'm going to show you how to do unit tests. Before you do unit tests, though, in PyCharm, you're going to need to set up a project. So I'm going to set up a project, and I'm going to call it Fibonacci. I'll just talk you through this a little bit. So when you create a PyCharm project, what it does is it creates a folder called venv, virtual environment, and inside that folder it installs an interpreter like the Python. So each time you create a PyCharm project, it will have its own version of Python associated with that project. Now the reason why it does that is because it's to, if your project stays static and doesn't change and the version of Python updates, it ensures that whatever way that you've done your project, it's packaged with all the things that it needs to run. So I'm going to put Python 3.9, Fibonacci venv is what it's going to be called, and then I'm going to click create. Now what I need to do is that code that I've given you within the support of this needs to be cut and pasted into this project. And so my next step will be to get the code that I've got on the OneNote, or it might be underneath the video, onto that project. So while I'm waiting for it to load up, I'm going to just talk a little bit about unit tests. So unit tests are code that tests your code. So instead of going through the slow process of basically manually typing in numbers into your code, before you actually even start coding, you can set up some unit tests to say, look, this is what the data that I expect to be successful, this data I expect to raise errors, etc. So I've got this new thing called Fibonacci, and it's got venv. I don't really care about venv too much, but I need to import that code into it. So I think what I'll do is I'll just go to it on the desktop, and and this one is called Sequence is Hard, and I'll double click on it, and hopefully it'll move into the project. Let's have a look. No, it's not done that, but maybe I can drag it down onto there. Let's right click and see whether I can do something. Is there a way that I can write add to project? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to Control A on it, Control A, and then I'm going to go File, New, and I'm going to choose a new Python file, and I'm going to call it Sequences, or maybe just Fibonacci. No, let's call it Sequences. It says Enter. It says it already exists. Let's go into here then and right click on this one. A new Python file. This is the way to do it. Sequences. They get enter, and then in there I'm going to paste that in. Oopsie. So Control copy, Control paste, and then up here I'm just going to close that one down. Okay, cool. So I've now got a file called Sequences in there. Probably wasn't the best way of doing it, but it's happened. Now I want to generate some of these unit tests. So to do that, I'm going to go up to Generate. You can also press Alt and Insert, and I'm going to generate a test, and it's going to go in the folder that I'm in. It's going to be called test_sequences. So that's a standard way of doing it, that you use the module name but you test and underscore first, and that's what I'm going to get test. I'm testing and then the name of the test function is test underscore, and then the name of the function I'm testing, and then I'm also going to go back, and I'm also going to go back to the Fibonacci one as well. So I'm going to do both functions, and I'm going to go and generate again, and in there I'm going to generate a test, and I'm going to click OK. So now I've got two tests, and it just says self.fail. So I think that just says that it's not working, and I want to do self.assert and assert equal, and then in there I need to say, this basically says the first thing is equal to the second thing. So I can say, so that in this one here I'm testing Fibonacci iterative, Control C. I'm going to say Fibonacci iterative, open brackets, 0 should have the value 0. And I'll say, I'm going to say that the Fibonacci of 1 should have the value 1, and Fibonacci of 2 should have the value 1. So I'm just going through the fib sequence, And I'm just going to hard code some values in. 3, 4, 5, and then on there that's going to go 2, 3, and 5. Is that right? Yeah, that's cool. Then what you've noticed here is you've got this wiggly line. That basically says I don't know how to do that. So I can go to show context actions, and it says import sequences. I'm going to import it locally because that's where it needs to be, I think. So I'm going to click import sequences.fibonacci. If I click on that, it'll go, there we go. From sequences, import that folder, and now it's going to run that. And it will return false if any of those are not true. Now I haven't added a config to run this yet, so I probably should do that. Plus add a Python script path. That's my sequences, isn't it? Sequences.py. Okay. Apply. Okay. Okay. And then I suppose there's a warning here. Always check what those are. Tests defined above without usage. Oh, okay. So I've not actually. Ah, right. So as I added those in, that wasn't very good of PyCharm. I'm just going to delete that so it's both within the same class. And I suppose the other thing I could do is when I test Fibonacci, I could just copy that code in and just delete that. Which you'd hope. I feel like I'm doing a bit of like yak shaving here. Unproductive. And then in there, notice that's grey because it never got used. I can right click and do show context action, do it locally. There we go. Now, I suppose at that point I then also need to run the unit tests as well. And so I think I can right click on that and go run unit tests. Now PyCharm knows how to do this, and by default, 2 blank lines found. Once you run the unit test file, it will come up with this testing section, which is really cool, and it will tell you what's passed and what's failed. Now all of these will fail because of the problem from the previous section, which I think I'll just fix because we've come this far. So I'm just going to go and I think I need to just drop that on and count equals +1. So let's run it again and see, just check that they work. Ran 2 tests. 0 is not equal to 1. Well, maybe if I start at 1. Okay, well you can work through these things, but this is the unit tests window, and it will just basically go through your tests and will tell you like where the first test went wrong, and you can look at the feedback from each of them. It only tests one test at a time, so you need to it'll go in and tell you which line failed, and you can work up through that to try and work out why that's not working. And also for when you come to do your project, this is a great way of planning your testing, because it means that you can just literally show the examiner that all of your unit tests actually work. So that's really cool. That's unit tests. And I'm going to do a next video on coverage, I think.